Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to another exciting episode of The Strong and the Geek.
Geek. Chicka chicka.
I am your host, Ben Ramirez. With me, as always, is my co-host, not Patrick Stewart. How you doing?
Hello!
That is definitely not Patrick Stewart.
That's how I like to talk.
How you doing?
Very good! Alright, no, that's enough of
That's
that.
like a very loud Islander.
I don't know. Now, doing well, ready for a fun and fantastic show I consider our shows to be like the way that cap off the weekend and the week. Other people consider Sunday the beginning of the week, but I look at that in reverse. To me, this is like the end of the week, so I'm excited to finish the week with a good show on all sorts of strong and geek kind of stuff.
I mean, Sunday is part of the weekend, so it seems weird that it's also part of the week beginning.
Well, it's interesting because
calendar.
I'm actually taking vacation this week, so I'll be off work and gone, and so really this is the beginning of my vacation. I guess started technically Friday afternoon, but it's still the end of last week, I guess.
Okay, all right. What'd you get into this week?
Well, interestingly enough, the most exciting thing that happened, I would suppose, is my girlfriend graduated college. Woohoo!
Yay.
But the funny part was, so we were ordering her some gifts for her graduation, because her graduation and her birthday are very close to each other. So we're just ordering her some gifts.
Who's we?
Our mother.
Oh, okay.
She wanted to get her something also.
Wait, we have the same mother?
Yeah.
What?
I know, it's out of this world. But anyway, we were ordering stuff, and so in total nerd geek fashion, she's ordering some stuff on Amazon, and I'm like, wait a second, I have an idea. If I tack on 2 graphic novels on there, we'll get free shipping. And she's like, shipping's only a couple dollars. I'm like, no, you'll save the dollars if we do this. It'll be a great idea. But really, I was just trying to get some more books out of it.
Fair enough.
So
What'd you get?
I got Forever Evil, which is, if you're unfamiliar, it's Lex Luthor teams up with a couple of other members of like the Injustice Society, and they actually worked with the Justice League to stop the crime syndicate when they came over from the antimatter.
For those of you who may not know, the crime syndicate is basically the Bizarro version.
No.
Well, not Bizarro. I shouldn't use the word Bizarro, but you know what I mean.
Evil version.
Yeah, it's an evil version of the Justice League with
Ultraman instead of Superman,
Owlman.
Superwoman instead of Wonder Woman. Then there's Owlman instead of Batman. Who actually, Owlman, on his Earth, was Bruce Wayne's brother, who ended up, like killing them.
Yeah.
So, but so they came over, the crime syndicate came over to Earth, to the main Earth, where the storyline's happening, and basically are, like, taking over and screwing everybody over. So Lex Luthor teams up with, like, the crime syndicate to kind of, like, combat them.
Okay.
The other one I got was Justice League Trinity War, which is when the Trinity, it's another New 52 story, which I haven't read yet, but I know that it involves the Trinity, Batman, Superman, Wonder Woman, going to war with each other.
Yeah, Batman versus Superman versus Wonder Woman.
Yeah, so we'll see. BVS.
Dawn of Injustice.
BVS, BWW. So we will see how those turn out. How about you?
Well, I watched a lot of TV this week.
I feel like that's what you say every single week.
As far as geeky stuff goes. Well, I work.
You either are driving or
take care of children.
Yeah, okay.
But I watched obviously all the geeky shows: Flash, Arrow, Legends Tomorrow,
which we'll talk about in a bit.
Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., which a lot of people gave up on, but I think that's one of my favorite shows on TV right now.
Speaking of which, Agent Carter got canceled this week.
Yeah, well, she died.
Yeah, Peggy.
they killed her off.
Peggy.
Well, you know what? That show did get kind of boring.
I never saw an episode. I wouldn't know.
I watched a lot of the first season, and I just couldn't get into it, so I didn't come back for the second season.
Gotcha.
But for instance, like with S.H.I.E.L.D., it's getting better and better. For those of you who watch S.H.I.E.L.D., we got Daisy back. She's not crazy anymore.
Crazy Daisy.
And Crazy Daisy is now just regular Daisy. But they killed off Lash, which was weird because they kind of shelved that character for a whole season, and then they bring him back for this one thing, and then they kill him off.
Don't you hate when shows do that?
Well, at this point in the series, the character, who was originally played by Blair Underwood, he transforms in his inhuman form, which they call Lash, and he's just like a big blue monster.
Oh.
So they basically sent him off on a mission to save this girl Daisy.
Like a Hulk monster, or like a Dr. Manhattan, or werewolf or what?
Of the three, I would say closer to looking like a werewolf. He's got he's very tall and very broad blue. He looks like a Klingon in the face, and he's got weird blue skin dreads.
So he's Beast.
No, not like Beast though, because he looks more like a shark with dreadlocks.
King Shark?
Not the one from Flash.
I'll just have to look this up.
King Shark from the Flash TV show looked pretty sweet though.
Yeah, he was badass. Yeah,
he was all head.
Yeah, King Shark's actually a pretty cool villain. I like him. Fair enough. So you were watching the shows and. That's it?
Yeah, I mean, if we want to talk about the shows.
All right, we'll dive right into our favorite CW entertainment.
Yeah.
By the way, before I even go on there is a rumor, an article circulating on Facebook and the internet, and I wanted to prime all of our listeners, and also you if you see this, to be aware. So what it's saying is that CW is changing their name to the DC Entertainment Network or something, and that they're going to... they're going to start transitioning all their shows to just being DC shows. It's complete bullshit. It's not actually happening.
Yeah, they have a lot of
as sweet
other
as that
shows.
would be. No, and even it's just not happening. As cool as that would be, and with Supergirl now coming over to the CW next season from CBS.
Oh, is she?
Yeah, CW picked it up for season 2. It might seem plausible, oh yeah, they're picking up all these DC shows, that's awesome, and even iZombie and all that stuff is based on DC properties, but no, don't be fooled.
Yeah, that would be a bit bizarre.
Internet readers beware.
And it would kind of pigeonhole them into only being able to do one thing.
Which I would perfectly be fine with. If they just decided to make a show of everything, I'd be okay with. Even, you know what it sucks though? They're making an Archie show.
Yeah, I heard there's going to be a big Archie expanded.
Interconnected
cinematic universe.
Apparently Archie, the comic, has been dealing with some heavy shit lately, but I have no desire.
Yeah, I don't follow Archie much.
Boo, Archie.
Boo.
Anyway,
take that, Archie Wood.
Yeah, boo, Archie. Suck on my wood.
What?
Never mind. Don't suck on anything. All right. Anyway, so moving to Flash, Arrow, and Legends. Which would you like to discuss first?
Well, we can just go in order. Flash this week was the episode directed by Kevin Smith.
The Runaway Dinosaur.
Which was a very emotional episode.
I must admit that this for me was the highlight of season 2 thus far. It was my favorite episode, I think, of season 2.
Mm-hmm.
And Grant Gustin, his emotional spectrum that he demonstrated in this episode was pretty darn good. I would say that was an Emmy award-winning performance.
It was definitely very good.
Yeah. The only part about the episode that, really pissed me off, so I guess just a brief spoiler alert.
Yeah, there's spoilers.
Set the spoiler alert. Sound the spoiler. I imagine it being more like a wheel.
Alright, anyway. Or one of those old World War II Europe horns. You know what? Spoiler!
Everybody listening to this is shut the fuck up, you two. We just lost all 12 of our Twitter followers.
Well, guys, you know what it's time for? Spoiler alert!
Oh, Jesus. Anyway, we'll save it saying, Flash. So what happened in the episode, really quick, we left off last week, we were left with Barry gone, presumably in the Speed Force, which was confirmed, and Wally and Jesse not.
It would have been really bizarre if they killed him off.
Yeah. Well, anyway, so Barry spent the episode in the Speed Force, which turned out to be this kind of sentient, omnipotent thing that he was speaking to, and to speak to him, it took the form of all of the loved ones in Barry's life, which I thought was very cool. One, because you get to see a different side of all the actors, but 2, it kind of gave this idea that Barry is really starting to connect with the Speed Force and understand that the Speed Force chose him.
Absolutely.
That he is the Flash.
That's exactly what I was just thinking, that it was fated to be him.
Now, the other side of the episode, outside of the Speed Force, was obviously the gang trying to get Barry out of the Speed Force, trying to take care of Jesse, and then dealing with, and this was the fucked up part of the episode, it was just so stupid.
Zombie Girder.
Girder back, but he was gorilla Girder. He literally walked around. He was a zombie. He walked around like a gorilla. I could never tell if he was metal or not. It was always so the dark. Every time he was around, the lighting on him was horrible.
Speaking of gorillas, can we talk about something that this is my own personal little fan theory based on something.
Is this Flash related?
Yeah, Flash related.
Okay, go ahead.
All right, so I was listening to Fat Man on Batman.
Uh-huh.
Shout out Kevin Smith. Give us a shout out too. Anyway,
I tweeted at him this week. He didn't respond.
bastard.
Actually.
Anyway, I was watching Fat Man on Batman, and they had on the actor who plays Jay Garrick.
Yeah, Teddy
And
Sears.
yeah,
I also listened to this episode.
okay, yeah, and then as you know, he gave it kind of his own personal story and how he got into acting, and that was all good and well. But the part that really stood out to me was when him and Kevin Smith were geeking out about the fact that the season finale of this season is apparently crazy. It's the type of thing that most shows do like 5 or 6 seasons in when they get renewed for a couple more seasons, but they kind of have to change everything up.
So what's your theory on it?
My theory is that we know Gorilla Grodd was sent to Gorilla City in Earth 2.
Yeah.
I think they're going to defeat Jay Garrick, and the apes, like the end of the season is going to be the apes coming and conquering, like coming through the breach and conquering the Earth.
Conquering Earth 1?
Yeah, and I think next season is going to be like Planet of the Apes,
That
but
doesn't-
in the Flash.
That wouldn't make any sense because then that would be apes controlling Arrow too. And Arrow's already been talking about their season 5 stuff.
Okay, well maybe like they control Central City.
Or the apes take over Earth 2 and the Flash and them have to save Earth 2. Then you don't have to worry about Arrow because Arrow doesn't go to Earth 2.
Right.
I think that...
No, like, yeah, I guess that's fair.
Yeah, but I mean, the gorillas, to be fair, the gorillas usually are okay and docile and want to coexist with humans. It's just Grodd that's crazy.
Well, yeah, but I mean,
But then
this
we'll
is
get-
a different. This is a different.
But then we could
plotline
get
from,
Solivar
Mhm.
and the other gorillas that are all nameless pretty much besides Solivar.
and the what is it? The Ultra Human.
Ultra Humanite is not a gorilla.
Ultra Humanite.
Ultra Humanite's something else. He is not from Gorilla City.
Yeah, but he is a super intelligent gorilla.
But he's not from Gorilla City, and there's more to it than that. He's not just a gorilla. Like his brain is put into the gorilla. Like they're not related.
Fair enough. So my theory was either it was going to be something to do with gorillas, because I mean we got that teaser of him going to Gorilla City, and then they just let it go, and that was
Okay. Yeah, I mean that would be
months
cool.
ago.
I do like Grodd.
My other thought was that like at the end of the season they're just going to meet a guy who happens to be named Lex Luthor, and that's just going to make the next season go crazy.
Yeah, but what would Luthor have to do with the Flash?
I don't know. They're not going based on any comics or anything.
You just want
that.
you just want to throw Luthor in.
Kevin Smith and Teddy made it very clear
That
something crazy is going to happen.
Well, but you're priming us.
They're not going to kill Grant Gustin.
No, but we're all you're priming us now and our listeners that it might be something like this huge plot twist or something crazy. Whereas it could just be a move that, in their opinion, working in the industry, they wouldn't expect a show to do so early on. So, for example, introducing bestiality or something.
What?
You're talking about the gorillas, and maybe they'll have like.
You think there's going to just be a hardcore, full penetration scene
Yeah.
of Barry and a gorilla lady?
Yeah, like looking into and like a lot of eye contact. Actually, it's funny.
Fierce eye contact.
It's funny. The complete side note, but I actually saw an article this week that it was like there was a lot of research on like the first examples of gorillas participating in lesbian behavior
Mhm.
and like front on like face to face lesbian sex between gorillas, and that had never been observed before in gorillas.
They were gorilla scissoring?
I don't know why that flash just made me think of gorilla scissoring, but yeah, that's what they were doing. And apparently it was like 7 out of the 10
So many
like,
hands.
gorillas participated in it at some point. Anyway, all right, what the fuck are we talking about?
Oh, man.
All right, moving on.
All right.
So Flash, Barry got a new like real boost. Literally from the Speed Force when he accepted like going to his mother's grave and kind of accepting that, you know what, sometimes people have to die, it's okay. And he got out of the Speed Force, beat Girder in like 10 seconds, and that's where we are. And it ended with that shot of Zoom has this like army now.
Right.
And
right.
I went
Metahuman
back and rewatched the episode and paused it and was looking through trying to see if I could, and to be honest with you, because of their costume designs and just the briefness of the scene, I couldn't recognize anyone, but I'm sure that there are some famous characters in there.
Right. I think it's going to be great. All right, moving on to Arrow. There was that weird scene where Stephen Amell sucked off that gorilla.
Yeah.
It was really out of left field.
And then
We didn't even know there were any gorillas in Starling City.
we're having a real bestiality kind of show tonight.
No, Arrow had a crazy twist. As far as those type of shows go, it always seems like nothing ever really has that high of stakes because like they save the day You know what I mean? And that's an old thing. Like, they cut the bright wire in the last second, and
Yeah.
the bomb doesn't go off.
Well, everybody.
Well, in this episode, it's like, all of the nukes in the world are going to go off. I'm like, no, they're not.
Yeah.
Obviously.
Right.
And then they're like, one got launched. I'm like, well, they're going to put it down somewhere. And she's like, oh, shit. And then an actual nuke goes off, and it's like, oh, that's how the episode ends.
Yep.
It doesn't really affect anyone in the show except Felicity's, sense of morality.
Yeah.
Because that's going to shake her to the core. But it just blew I was like, whoa, are you shitting me? Like,
you know the one thing about that I've kind of been confused about? So they had Mr. Terrific is on the show, but they don't ever call him Mr. Terrific. Curtis.
Oh, right.
Yeah, but what I thought that they were going to start building him up to kind of fill that role as tech genius Mr. Terrific, but I feel like he's been really every now and then, yeah, he pops up and's doing that, but then he just kind of...
Well, I think he is the writer's little deus ex machina. They can, use him
bring
to
him
be
in
like, Felicity's legs don't work. Well, I mean, but Curtis.
Yeah, thanks, Curtis.
And, hey, you know what? We really need to get in and hack this thing because Felicity can't right now. Well, let's call Curtis.
The thing is I don't want it just to be true, but every now and then I feel like if they're like, oh, we've had way too many, not diverse episodes lately, so let's throw in gay black guy for a little bit, and then all right, see ya gay black guy. All right, back to what we were doing. And I don't want that I want him to be I want him to fully become Mr. Terrific. That's cool that they made him gay. I think that's cool, the different new take, but make him full on. Get him his costume.
Mm-hmm.
Get him his weird accidents that he's can immune to all technology and all that kind of stuff. Just go full on Mr. Terrific.
Well, I think they could use a tech thing for that. Do you think it'd be a little much, a little on the nose to say that a gay guy's character is Mr. Terrific? That's a bit on the nose, isn't it?
Oh dear. Oh dear.
Anyway,
he's a member of the Justice Society. Damn it.
I know. It's just that's. Sorry, folks. That's the gayest name ever. Mr. Terrific. And then, of course, there's Mr. Fantastic.
Oh, God. Oh, dear Lord. Okay. Anyway. All right, moving on from Arrow to Legends. All right, talk about Legends.
In Legends this week, we found out that there's no such thing as free will. And then at the end of the episode, we found out that free will exists again.
Yeah, pretty much.
They did away with the concept of free will, and they said that the Time Masters planned everything, which I thought was a little silly because, there was a lot of times where they would have said, well, then why did they bother sending Kronos after them if they knew he was going to turn back to being their ally?
Yeah, anytime.
And if he was going to fail.
This is the problem with any kind of time travel show or anything, is this idea that, well, wouldn't they know that all along?
Yeah.
And especially because they don't take the idea that there's that they keep repeating this idea that the timeline is one thing, and we can look ahead and see that if we do this, is it going to fuck with the timeline? But the problem is, I prefer the idea, where it's, no, we, there's new timelines. We create a new timeline when we change something.
Well, and it's you and I were talking earlier this week that because this exists in the same universe as The Flash, then why is it that every time Barry goes back in time or Eobard goes back in time, Kronos doesn't show up to phase their ass before they change the timeline? And
then we mentioned the time wraiths that showed up in The Flash, and where the fuck were they in Legends?
Yeah, how are they not constantly chasing the Wave Rider?
Yeah, did Harry Potter Expelliarmus them all? Because they looked exactly like the things from Harry Potter.
Maybe it's only if you use the Speed Force to go back in time.
Maybe, but that's still kind of stupid.
If you don't have a giant time turner.
That really sounds to me just like the writers kind of...
Well, I mean, I imagine the teams don't work together.
Yeah, but Berlanti and them are in charge of all those shows, so...
You really think they would have some kind of more continuity?
Yeah, because they are really pressing for these shows to become a continued combined universe. So, and even the little stupid things like Big Belly Burger and all of them, that kind of crap.
Yeah.
But if you're gonna have a big plot point, time travel, which one of your shows is all about, don't mess up the little things like that. Come on.
And again, if you lived in Starling City and there was all this crap going on...
It's Star City.
Oh, that's right, Star City. And there's all this business going on with Damien Dark and his magic. Hey, can't the Flash just run over here and punch him in the face?
I haven't figured out why. Why Oliver.
Why
has
does
and
he not just?
He has him on speed dial.
Why doesn't he always call and be like, "Hey, just so you know, I need you again."
Like, hey Barry,
Because
I know you're on another.
he can stop arrows with his brain, but
Yeah.
you run like the speed of light. So
Yeah.
why don't you just punch him?
Do that lightning toss thing one
Yeah.
time, not kill him, and we're good.
Or you know what? Or kill him.
You know what? So this episode of the last thing I want to say about the Legends episode is that we found out that Vandal was being allowed to rule the world because he's the last line of defense against the Thanagarians.
Yeah, Thanagar is getting brought
which
into
is
the
cool.
universe.
I think that's really cool because if you bring in Thanagar, then you open up now that this will be other planets, so we get the idea. Who knows if Oa might be talked about or Ran and
or
Adam
Mars.
Like, yeah, Martian Manhunter is on.
He's on Supergirl.
On Supergirl, and Supergirl's crossed over with Flash already, and now it's come to CW. I'm sure it'll cross over again.
Right.
So it's cool. It opens up the universe literally. However, we both talked about this week. That it's like, oh fuck, are they gonna have more Carter and Shiera stuff now? Because like that is the weakest part of that show. Like we don't want to hear anything more about you being a barista, Big Mouth. Burn nose, chill.
And I posed the question, how is this going to affect their powers? Because as a lot of you guys may know, Hawk Girl and Hawk Man, I was going to call him Hawk Boy. Hawk Girl and Hawk Man.
Hawk Boy.
and Hawk Boy.
You could call him Hawk Boy.
And Tiny Little Hawk. They are Thanagarian depending on which origin.
Which one?
Yeah.
Depending on which Hawkman, which Hawk Girl.
Yeah. So now that they're going to be bringing in kind of both origin stories, I'm wondering, as I said before, maybe that meteor that hit the Earth was actually had some Thanagarian tech on it or something like that.
Nth metal.
And that's what actually caused them to have their magic abilities.
I don't know.
I mean, it's a possibility.
I know that Nth metal, the big thing in Thanagar, which the mace is made out of and stuff, it is very powerful against magic.
Yeah, it nullifies magic.
Yeah, and it can beat the shit out of Superman even.
Yeah.
So that's maybe, I don't know.
I think that'd be an interesting way to tie it in.
Yeah, the other thing that kind of pissed me off is that they've Vandal Savage has been the quote unquote villain of the show, but really there's episodes where he's not really even kind of that big a deal, and now we find out the Time Masters were using him. So are the Time Masters really the big bad here?
Well, here's my real problem.
Kronos was the bad for a little tiny bit there.
Here's my real problem with Vandal Savage as the villain in the show. Not the actor or the writing or anything like that. I think he is very sinister, and anytime he's around, he's got this smugness that I
hate
think
when
is
he
great.
says Shiera.
Shiera. But it is not you. It is Carter.
All right, whatever. Continue.
Anyway, no. The thing is, if you go back and you rewatch the show, in the second or third episode, the first one was a two-parter, so I think it's in the third episode, they actually beat him till he's unconscious. Why is the next episode him tied up in their ship? They just left. They beat him to being unconscious. They had him at their mercy. And then in the next episode, it's all right, Gideon, where can we find Vandal Savage next? It's back there. He's unconscious. Yeah. Go back and get him.
Gideon dropped the ball. Rip Hunter has just been a kind of shitty leader, but Gideon is smarter than that. Yeah. Shame on you, Gideon.
Also, am I crazy, or was in season 1 of Flash Gideon. AI was also
Flash,
Gideon.
Yeah, Flash invented Gideon from season 1 of Flash. Is what we know that. So I'm assuming that the tech he invented, Gideon, it's kind of like Cortana. It evolved over the 100 years or whatever, and this is the maybe Gideon version.
Gideon's like Siri.
Yeah,
everyone has Gideon.
It had a different voice though, because this one was an English Gideon, which you can do to Siri too. You can change Siri.
Yeah.
So yeah. What pissed me off about the Flash though, and I actually tweeted at the Flash, and they also didn't respond, so fuck you guys. But what the hell happened to Gideon on the Flash? The time chamber, whatever they call it, the little time closet they go into.
Yeah, that broom closet.
What do they call it? There's a name
full
for
of future technology.
We'll have to look it up. But they go in there all the time, and pun intended, and open up stuff and use the tech in there, and everything there is still operational. What the hell happened to Gideon?
Yeah, that's a good point.
Gideon just disappeared one day.
That is a good point.
And it pisses me off because Gideon could tell you what's going to happen in the future. Like, if Barry, and we know for a fact it would listen to Barry because it's programmed that anything Barry says it will do. Why the fuck doesn't Barry just go in there and say, Gideon, how do I beat Zoom? Okay, cool, thanks.
I hadn't considered that. That's a good point.
That is a huge gaping plot hole that has not been addressed at all. And they never responded to my tweet. I was like, where the fuck is Gideon? Like, I went back and rewatched all season 1, and it just disappears. Like, they don't say, Gideon.
Clearly Gideon quit her job there. She got a job at the Wave Rider, I mean. And
changed her accent.
But because there was a season in between those,
she went to England.
She went and did a season abroad, and then picked up an accent,
which is how accents work.
And everyone finds her super pretentious because they know that she's pretending to have that accent. I'm looking at you, Madonna. Anyway, and maybe that's how it works. Maybe AIs can change jobs.
I don't know, man. I don't know. I'm gonna say overall, The Flash is probably my favorite show on television right now, but that one really pissed me off.
Well, there's moments in all these. By the way, I find it interesting that you're done talking about Legends of Tomorrow, and we haven't talked about the fact that Snart is dead.
Holy shit!
They killed Captain Cold.
They killed Captain Cold.
And I thought it was okay, so here's what I thought was going to happen.
I totally forgot. Oh.
First, Ray Palmer has his hand in the machine. And first of all, that's retarded. I'm sorry to use the R word, but that there's there's a little lever in here that you have to hold down, so you have to kill yourself in order to blow up the machine.
Yeah, who built that?
Yeah, who built that?
Yeah.
But in any case,
the guy from Pikmin, Olimar built that.
So he reaches in, he's gonna pull the thing down, and then Mick Rory's like, "Let me do it. I got this."
That was
pretty
good.
And I was like, "Oh yeah, Mick Rory is the guy that should do this."
Yeah, fuck you, Heatwave.
But then, no, because he was Kronos, they tortured him. He's the guy that has to die to.
It would finish his character arc.
It would be perfect for his character arc. But then Captain Cold shows up and he's like, "Sorry about this, Mick."
No, hold on a second. I love
that's my Captain Cold impersonation.
I love that. I was so pissed.
But here's the thing. I thought what he was going to do was freeze his arm so that it stuck down the thing and then just break his forearm off. They were just going to leave.
Badass.
And Mick was going to get a robot arm. Yeah. I sincerely thought that's what was about to happen.
And that seems like a completely plausible way to do that.
And that also makes way more sense for his character than to be selfless.
Yeah.
Because he's proven that, yes, when it comes to Mick, he always puts Mick before himself. But even then, he killed himself for it? No, that's not Leonard Snark.
No, and here's the thing, is that pisses me off because, one, that the presumption is then, unless they go back in time and change something, Captain Cold's gone. One of the best the best character on Legends of Tomorrow.
Well, I mean, that's not to say that someone else can't take up the mantle of Captain Cold.
No, I'm talking about Leonard Snart, dude.
Yeah.
That's sweet. And also, that means we're not going to have him back on Flash, which he's the leader of the Rogues. It sucks ass. But also,
now we'll just be stuck with his dumb sister.
But why the hell wouldn't they just do what you're saying?
Yeah.
Why wouldn't you just freeze him?
Freeze his arm at the elbow.
You have a fucking
and then
freeze
just
gun.
Like a karate chop through the frozen arm.
Get a Winter Soldier thing going on.
Yeah, he would have a fire-breathing arm.
Yeah.
It would be badass.
He would be real Heatwave, man.
Yeah. Although, we do got to talk about the fact that he curb stomped that dude.
He did.
How awesome was that? He was like, "I'm going to crush your skull under my boot."
Yeah.
And then he gets up and he's like, "Please have mercy." And he's like, "I told you what was going to happen."
Yeah.
I really thought it was going to be he was just going to be "You're not even worth my time" or something. No, because that's how they do the writing in those shows. Right. And then they just pan up as his boot comes down. I was like, holy shit! He just broke his skull.
I think they're trying to reinforce the idea that just because Heatwave and Captain Cold were on this mission, they're not heroes.
That was a really rated R moment.
You can still be a
PG show.
You can be a legend and still be evil. There are evil legends out there.
That was crazy.
All right. Well, do you have anything else to add about them? Or?
No. Legends of Tomorrow is just. Yeah, that was a good episode.
Yeah, I thought it was good too. There's a couple weeks left in all these shows, and after the season finales and everything, we'll go back and kind of do our review on an upcoming episode later on of the whole seasons as a whole. That's a redundant statement.
Oh, I did want to talk about one other thing before we move on. I went and saw Captain America: Civil War again, and I have to modify my review just a little bit from last week.
I have to modify one thing also.
I'm giving it another point.
You're giving it a 9 then?
I'm giving it a 9.
Okay.
After sitting down and watching it again, yes, the first sequence does still have a crazy amount of shaky camera, which takes away from it. Especially when you have awesome choreography,
we talked a whole lot.
All those awesome scenes. But that being said, the rest of the movie didn't have it nearly as bad, so I think like the first scene
Right,
kind of
okay.
throws it off. And a lot of the things that I was like, well, that's convenient. Well, how would he know about this? Or when talking about
Yeah.
Zemo, after watching it again, I was like, oh, they did put a little thing in there. It's just I didn't catch it.
No,
first
I
time
mean, I
around.
saw it again too, and I kind of got that vibe, but I still think Zemo fucking sucks.
Well,
What
and the point still remains like there's no way he would have that tape would have been
No, I
there.
know, yeah.
That's stupid.
Well, the only thing that I had to go back and correct was that we said that Ross was the Secretary of Defense. No, he was the Secretary of State.
Right.
That's my only correction. Everything, it's still an 8 out of 10 for me.
Yeah.
Maybe
Well,
maybe an 8.5.
I gave it an extra point because I was unfair to it. It was my fault for not paying attention enough the first time around.
Man, you just sucked their gorilla dick.
Yeah, but I sucked that big old gorilla frozen by Captain Cold penis.
Oh god. All right.
Oh god. That's just
So unfortunately, this week we did have a loss in the geek community.
Yes.
Darwin
Just
Cook.
last night.
Yeah. Oh, I thought it was 2 days ago.
No, I think it was last night.
Well, it doesn't matter. The exact date, but Darwin Cook passed away from cancer this week at the age of 53, so pretty young. But Darwin Cook was a really prolific comic book writer, Eisner Award winning, best known for, in my opinion, Justice League: The New Frontier, which is one of the best DC graphic novels there is. He wrote and illustrated that one. The artwork in it is beautiful. It's a kind of Silver Age telling of how the Justice League came together in the 1950s and 60s. They made a DC animated movie version of it, so all of you who have never seen it, go watch the Justice League New Frontier movie. It's really, really good. Actually, interestingly enough, I read that graphic novel again this week, and it just happened to coincide with his death, unfortunately. But the reason why I bring this up is because we decided that we were going to posthumously make Darwin Cook our Geek of the Week.
Geek of the week. I feel weird doing the voices and stuff for this one because it's he just passed away.
Yeah.
He contributed a lot to the community, and it's always sad to see one of your heroes go.
And he wrote before Watchmen. Well, he wrote and or did the art for Before Watchmen, which has contributed to that great Alan Moore book. He did a lot of work on Batman the Animated Series.
One
Batman
of the
Beyond.
Greatest cartoons. Actually, for me, probably the greatest cartoon ever written.
And so a lot of great stuff. He will be sincerely missed, and we are kind of upset that we're not going to get to more beautiful artwork like in some of your books.
Of all of the people I ever knew, he was the most human.
Oh, man.
Me. Anyway, sorry. Thank you for everything you did, and you are our Geek of the Week.
All right. So our main topic this evening is we were discussing what we wanted to talk about on the show, and we've talked a lot about movies. We've spent a whole shit ton of time tonight talking about TV shows, but we haven't talked about video games too much.
Oh, and we've talked a lot about comic books. We have not talked a lot about video games.
So we decided that we'd have a video game kind of show this evening. And specifically, I pointed out this week to Ben that I thought, video game storytelling has really, really gotten high. And actually, that was no better kind of put that a lot of video games are being made into movies, such as the Assassin's Creed movie we got the trailer for.
Oh, we forgot to talk about the trailer.
Yeah, which we can mention in a second when we talk about how Assassin's Creed kind of is contributing. But I think it just really shows that video games as a medium for telling great stories has really, really become kind of a one, cool, but two, like acceptable form. Particularly coming from, fucking Pac-Man, where the story of Pac-Man is you gobble little pills and run away from ghosts.
We'll keep that one for our fan theory episode.
Yeah.
I don't have any fan theories about Pac-Man.
Yeah, but I mean, like...
rampant consumerism?
Yeah, and taking steroids.
Yeah.
But I think that we have had such leaps and bounds. So I think to look at, character development, to look at plot twists, all these things that in the beginning just never existed. I mean, the plot twist in Mario, what? You jump over him and you hit the axe and you kill him in one hit?
Yeah.
As opposed to, move forward 20 years or whatever, and it's like, holy shit, Liquid Snake is a clone of Solid Snake.
Well, yeah, obviously narrative in games has advanced a lot in the actual, plot. But that's not to say that there weren't games back then that had it. I mean, when you look at, the original Final Fantasy.
Oh, yeah, which was
stuff like,
great.
Legend of Zelda.
Yeah.
They did have plot lines.
But even then,
those narratives.
Yeah, and they were just very linear and simple. And part of that was the technology at the time. You couldn't have this crazy huge...
There were restrictions,
But
obviously.
also, I think there wasn't... Anything they were doing then was, new and groundbreaking. That, if you had a story where, yes, go and get the 4 crystals, then magically you'll be transformed into better jobs, and then you have to go fight Chaos Demon, and you win. Okay... With nothing before that, that's a sweet ass story. Now it's like, okay, what I can play this on, I can download this on my iPhone,
Absolutely.
literally.
Yeah.
Compared to the Final Fantasy is actually a great example of how the storytelling from Game 1 to Game 2. Game 1, it's a pretty straightforward narrative. Game 2, it's this whole big empire plot. Game 3, I've actually never played, so I don't know that one. And then you go to 4. And that's with Cecil and the character conflict of changing from a Dark Knight and him dealing with that to a Paladin.
I think that's where you had the one the first one in the series that really the narrative.
You had characters dying, like
Yeah.
Tella and the twins. I mean, they brought them back, but and Sid sacrifices himself. That was a game where each character driven, very dialogue driven,
and the plot takes you all the way to the fucking moon
and under the earth too.
And there was a giant robot.
There was a robot. There was a guy who was whipped out his fire cloak and was no practically naked.
He whipped it out.
Yeah, when he flew off that cloak.
Well, then if you were looking at in America release, that was actually Final Fantasy 2.
Yeah,
and then you go on to in America Final Fantasy 3, or to Final Fantasy 6,
which is probably one of the best video games period ever.
Yeah, well,
but storytelling wise,
and
fantastic.
As far as villains are concerned, you want to talk about. He's the Joker. He's the Joker.
Kafka. He's talking about Kafka.
Kafka Palazzo, who is basically what would happen if the Joker was given the power of a god.
Would you say that Kafka is your favorite video game villain of all time? Because I would.
Yeah, I would too.
Yeah.
I think he's so sinister, and the motivation behind his character, as opposed to I'm evil for evil's sake. It's just the same it's the same inspiration as the Joker. It's just so let's just do this. It might be fun.
Well, for those of you who don't know, so Kafka Palazzo in the story, he originally is, so there's this empire that's kind of trying to take over the world. Kafka is the court jester of the empire. And they start testing using magic. They start testing on human subjects to try and infuse them with magic. When they do this to Kafka, he loses his fucking mind. And as the course of the game goes on, he becomes murderous. He poisons a water supply and kills an entire castle of people.
Yeah, they really kind of gloss, they don't gloss over that.
He committed genocide.
Yeah, but
that's actually a really short. It's a really short scene.
It's a really short scene, but it's crazy.
Yeah, he killed everybody in the castle except Cyan.
And that completely set what Cyan's character motivation was.
Well, and so Kafka throughout the game progresses from just this kind of a nuisance side character. And if you didn't know he was the big bad for the first, I would say, the third of that game, at first he just seems like a nuisance side character boss that you have one big battle with and you're like, okay, whatever. But then as the story goes on, he gets so much magic that he eventually becomes literally a god and destroys the world.
I was going to say that's one
the second half of that game.
If you want to talk about interesting narrative in games, at the halfway point through that game,
the world ends.
The world ends. And you have to play the second half of the game in a post-apocalyptic world. So the entire structure of the narrative changes,
right.
And the focus on who the main character at that point changes. It goes from Locke and Terra to Celeste.
And I think that a good thing about, I know we're talking a lot about Final Fantasy VI, but it's so fucking great. Mm-hmm. But I think the other thing that did really well there is that developing each character. Each character had a voice that was very strong, except for, I guess, Go-Go, because he was mute.
And Umaru.
And Umaru, yeah. But even them, they were developed to an extent, except for Go-Go's a side character, so he's irrelevant. But
and Umaru's a side character.
But Umaru even had the story that he was friends with Mog, and he defended the cave, and then Mog spoke to him. Right. And but each character was pretty well fleshed out. You cared about them. There isn't any of those characters that you were really oh boo, fuck you.
And the thing about that I will say is that as opposed to every other Final Fantasy where there is a protagonist who is like the main character, and it's usually like a dude, and then there's a bunch of other people around him. In Final Fantasy VI, I say that Locke and Terra are but that's just because they're the first two you meet.
No, yeah.
Realistically, every single one of those characters has their own like character journey.
The game really revolves around Terra mostly. That like she's the driving force, but each one of them has enough screen time, has enough control, and the thing is that's the only one that I'm aware of where you can switch out any character you want. All the other ones you have to have Cloud in your party, you have to have Squall, you have to have Zidane, you have to have Titus. But in that one, you can have whoever, and I really enjoyed that because it gave you the idea that no, we're not playing Cloud's story. We're playing the story of this world getting fucked up by this crazy ass clown, and how
from the viewpoints of these
14 people, and how they save the world.
Right.
And moving from there, from Final Fantasy, talking about other games that have really good like kind of character building, I just feel like a lot of the modern games now, you talk about The Witcher you really like, Assassin's Creed and everything, they do a really good job of just building these characters as much more than just, your avatar.
Right. Well, like, for instance, if we were going to talk about Assassin's Creed, which, we'll talk about the game a little bit, and then we'll talk, we can mention the trailer.
Yeah, we can throw the trailer in there.
Well, as far as the trailer goes, like, I like the trailer.
Is that Ezio?
No, this is actually a new character. They
said it's in the Spanish Inquisition, right?
Yeah, this is a new character in the series. The name of the assassin is Aguilar.
Played by Michael Fassbender.
Played by Michael Fassbender.
Who is not Spanish.
Not at all. But one of his ancestors apparently was.
Yeah.
Which is fine.
He's cool. Michael Fassbender's awesome. Good for you, Magneto.
Yeah, no, he's a great actor.
I just put Ice Cube in my mouth. Sorry, I was talking.
That's fine. I like the trailer a lot. I think it like showed off a lot of I like what they did with the lighting effect, where like in the past everything kind of had a yellow tint to it, and anytime you saw the stuff in modern day, it had like a bluish tint to it. So in the trailer, your eyes could like tell the difference, even if you couldn't tell by the scenery.
I also like because I wasn't sure if they were gonna go straight just back the past and past stuff and like not even bring in the Animus or the future or anything. I like that they're going straight from the game, that it's him going back in time in his mind. I thought that was
cool. One thing I didn't like was that they used a Kanye song, which whether or not you like Kanye, it just didn't fit the aesthetic of the trailer.
I actually thought it was cool. But.
I mean, when I hear a song like that, I'm thinking of like a trailer for a movie like Wolf on Wall Street
or Fast and the Furious.
Yeah, like I'm not thinking of like. I feel like when you see a movie that takes place in that kind of period,
I'm thinking of like an Israeli singer going like oh, dun, 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 like heavy drums.
It's the Spanish Inquisition, right?
Okay, Gladiator used an Israeli singer.
But yes, that's actually exactly what I'm thinking.
Yeah, come on.
Or I mean, what is in all trailers right now?
So basically, Inception.
Like,
you just want the Inception. Ask Hans to do the Inception soundtrack.
And then just like a whole bunch of brass instruments going like okay,
but
you know what I'm talking about.
Yes, you just did Batman v Superman.
Yeah. Anyway, but other than that, I think the trailer looks great. I think this might be one of the first real great video game adaptations to movies.
Yeah.
And I'm really hoping that it is.
Yeah. But because Assassin's Creed is a great story, and that's what we're talking about.
Yeah, and going back to narrative, okay, so a lot of people have a lot of problems with the Assassin's Creed games. A lot of people really hate the modern day stuff, which I don't agree with that because first of all, one of the biggest rug being torn out from under you was in the original Assassin's Creed when it turns out it wasn't just a game that takes place in the Middle East. They kept that under wraps until the game was released. So you boot up the game and you're like, whoa, wait a minute. Why am I in a room in like 2007 or whatever the game came out? And that was a huge thing that they were actually able to keep that under wraps. And the story of Desmond. Now, I will admit that since Desmond died, it did change the modern day stuff, and I don't like it as much. But one of the things I wanted to talk about tonight when we're talking about narrative is that there are games like Final Fantasy, for instance, where they give you all of the narrative. You know what I mean? They give you hours and hours worth of dialogue. Whereas in a game like Assassin's Creed, yes, you do have the story of the game, but there's also a lot of narrative that if you want it, you have to dig for it. it requires the player to look into the game further.
Which is cool because that doesn't exist in movies, that doesn't exist in novels, that doesn't exist in television shows or even comic books or whatever. In that, you get what they give you. In video games, you have this ability that you can go on a side quest and learn more and everything.
So, for instance, in the Assassin's Creed universe, you would, in the modern day, like hack into a computer and read emails back and forth between members of Abstergo, the evil corporation. And a lot of the emails are like they write regular emails. So as you're reading through it, it's like, hey, did you happen to catch last night's episode of whatever? So it's like regular correspondence, which as opposed to a lot of other video games where everything you find is pertinent to the story, this gives you the idea that the world is a real place. These are just people working at a company.
Yeah.
But every now and again, you'll find the one that is like, oh, this is the information that is trying to be hidden. And by finding those bits of information, it enriches the storyline. I think a lot of the reason that people don't like the modern day stuff is they don't take the time to do that and to enrich the narrative that the game is trying to give you.
Yeah.
Now, one thing you were saying before was about getting into the characters. The one that Assassin's Creed has done where it did that better than any, I think, is with Ezio.
Mm-hmm.
Because with Ezio, we had 3 different games just dedicated to him. Mm-hmm. And we had a short film made, Assassin's Creed Embers, an animated film. And when you put all 4 of those things together, you literally have the timeline of Ezio's life. Because the very first moment when you play as Ezio is the moment he's born, and they show like the tutorial as
you
mapping.
Play as him as a little baby.
Well, yeah, that's how they show the tutorial map. Like if you press square, he moves his one hand. If you press circle, he moves his other hand. So the guy his father is holding him as a baby, and it says like press square, and the baby's right hand kind of grasps, and press circle.
I did not know that.
And then
they should make a whole game that's that. A whole game of you just being a baby.
Well, it's just that moment where you meet the family, you meet the characters, and then it jumps forward till he's a teenager, and it's him running around being kind of a mischievous teen,
fucking girls in cars,
more or less. But then his dad and his brothers get killed, and he's on the run, and he finds out that his dad was an assassin, and he takes up the mantle. And that's all in the first game, and then you get into the second game where he becomes the Grand Master of the Assassins and builds up the Assassin Order, and then finally you get to Assassin's Creed Revelations where it doesn't just finish out his story, but it also finishes out Altair's story from the first game, because you use the discs to look back in time. And for those of you who are fans of the series, I know I'm talking like as if everyone knows what I'm talking about, but it was great to see more of Altair's story. So it was actually a narrative within narrative in that game, which is funny because it's also within narrative because it's all a program of the memories of Desmond's ancestors. And then finally we get Assassin's Creed 3. I'm sorry, before I say that, I was going to say that Embers was a short, like 30-minute film that showed the last few days of Ezio's life, and finally he dies. So if you do that all together, not only are you playing 3 great games and watching a fun little movie, you're literally seeing the life from the birth and the death of Ezio. Yeah. If you want to talk about getting into a character, you can't more than their entire life. Yeah. And then as far as Desmond is concerned, in Assassin's Creed 3, he makes the choice. So we also have the character building of not just the main characters that you play as, but as many other characters as well. Right. So I think Assassin's Creed, as far as a narrative-driven series, is actually one of the ones that's really big right now. Yeah. Now, people have been fatigued by them because we've been getting annual launches.
Pretty much every era now has an Assassin's Creed.
Yeah. Now, they are taking a year off now because they wanted to put the movie out this year, and they heard from the fans saying, hey, look, you're giving us too much. Take a year off and make it different instead of just the same game with a new skin. Yeah. And I'm excited because the next one is supposed to take place in ancient Egypt. They're going back further. Oh,
that'd be cool.
Instead of, because each one has been getting closer and closer to the modern day.
Yeah.
So I'm very excited. But as far as narrative, as we've been talking, I think that as far as digging into the story and finding out more is one of the things that makes Assassin's Creed really stand out.
I think that another big thing is that we have gotten to the point now with video games that we even have some games nowadays that come out that the whole point is the story. So, you have games that come out that in the beginning, it's like I mentioned with Pac-Man. The whole point was the game mechanics, and catching the little dots or whatever. As the hardware's gotten better, there are games that some of the games, honestly, in my opinion, are just to show off the visuals. They really lack a lot of substance. There are some other games, like a lot of first-person shooters. No one plays the fucking campaign mode. They all they care about is the shooters.
Exactly.
Halo is an exception. Halo has a fantastic narrative, but there's a lot of games that are like that. Sports games, there's no story in that, but people love them. Madden, FIFA, two of the most popular games.
Right.
People love them. But there are games now that we have where the whole point isn't really the gameplay; it's the story. And for example, the one I'm thinking is Firewatch, which just came out recently, critically acclaimed. And the whole point of the game, if you've never played it, is that you are working at a national park, and you're a member of the Firewatch, like watching out for forest fires, calling National Guard or 911 or whoever you have to call. And the whole point of the game is really simple, that you're walking around making sure that you're watching these fires, and it goes over the course of like one whole summer, but it does a couple days and then it jumps ahead a couple weeks, and you play it out through this guy as the main character in first person mode. But it's all story driven. So the opening sequence of the game is you find out that this guy, the reason why he came to be the Firewatch is because his wife has Alzheimer's and is progressively getting worse, and so she moved back with her parents because she kind of can't even remember who he is. And cracking under the stress from that, he, instead of staying with his wife, he made like this impulse move to try and cope with this being devastated, and moves away and becomes a Firewatch, like completely. And the whole game is like, it's just you by yourself. There's the only other character is this Delilah who you talk on your like radio, and she's like your supervisor. And literally, this game is just you walking around the woods figuring stuff out, and a mystery starts to come. But it's really, the controls are simple. The objectives are go to this part on the map because Delilah's telling you, hey, we heard some weird noises or something. But a story kind of starts to come out that these teenage girls disappear, or they're like yelling at you and they disappear, and then holy shit, what happened to them? You find this stuff and you think you're being watched, and it's all just the story. There's no combat, there's no puzzles to solve, it's nothing. It's just you exploring and finding out this story, and it leaves you with, kind of a heart-wrenching ending, but it's one of those, like you were talking about, choices, because you can choose whether or not to flirt with Delilah, or you can, anytime, if anything, at any point in the game, whenever you want, you can call in and ask her about anything, like, hey, I found a soda can, do you like soda? And they'll talk, and some of the best voice acting I've ever heard in a game, but really, for me, it was just a great example of solely, like, just a video game that is like watching a movie. It's just like doing it for the story, but you're in control of kind of how it goes. And I find that is just something that's unique to, like, we live in the era now where people are creating games where it's kind of you're controlling what's going on, but we're telling you this excellent story.
Right. Now, the funny thing is that actually makes me think of two different, it takes me down two different lanes. The first is, as we talk about choice as a narrative option, in a lot of older games, choice comes up as something just like, oh, there's like a karmic meter. You can choose to be good or you can choose to be evil, right? And yeah, that's fine, but it doesn't really affect. You might get a different ending, or you might get different, like in Knights of the Old Republic. You have different affinity with some of your evil teammates, but it doesn't really affect the narrative of the game. Whereas, for instance, in The Witcher 3, big game from last year.
Yeah.
In The Witcher 3, people who found that narrative is really in their hands.
Yeah.
But the thing about it is that the choices you make in that game aren't based on what's good or what's evil. It's just what you think. Well, basically what you think is the least evil option to take.
Right.
For instance, as anyone who may not have played, the first major choice you come to is there is these 3 witches that have been taking these like orphans as like sacrifices to them, but in return they give the surrounding farmlands and whatnot like plentiful harvest. You know what I mean? And the farmlands have actually taken to them, like worshiping them like as their goddesses, right? And then there's also this spirit in this tree that they tell you is an evil spirit, and they send you on this mission to kill this evil spirit. And when you come to the tree, it explains to you that the witches are killing the orphans, and that you need to protect them by letting the spirit out of the tree. So you get this choice, which is basically, do you want to save these orphans, or do you want to, and by freeing the spirit, or do you want to go through with the mission that you have been given?
Mhm.
Now, immediately that sounds like an obvious choice,
Save the children.
but the problem is, if you do save the children, that tree spirit goes and murders all those villagers that
There's
are worshiping the witches. And beyond that, the main person that you're working for at the time is this guy they call the Bloody Baron, and his wife is in service to the crones, the three witches. And if they manage to kill the orphans, she actually survives. But if you free the tree spirit and it goes and kills and saves all the orphans, then she dies. And so he hangs himself. And so like all these things don't happen right away. These things happen hours and hours later into gameplay.
Right.
So even the small decisions that you make now affect what goes on later.
Right.
Because then with the Baron dead, someone else comes into power and changes up the whole dynamic of the place they live.
And see, that is what I love, because it's incorporating you. No, I don't love killing orphans, but I love that you're helping tell the story. They have this story, but it's a choose your own adventure book kind of thing. And that is really cool, because it gives you the opportunity to, one, want to play the game again and learn all the story, but two, like, you're playing a hand in this ongoing narrative of whatever. So, for instance, also like Fable had a lot of that. Fable was one of the first that had a whole lot of that.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of like Skyrim, which I bought today for $5. But it has a whole lot of that. It's just this idea that it's a story, but you're contributing to it. And I read an article once about how, like, it was questioning if video games are like the next logical step in filmmaking and all that kind of stuff, because it's helping you it's more interactive and you're kind of controlling the outcome. And I don't think we'll ever lose films or anything like that. That would be absurd. No. But I do agree with the idea that this kind of interactive narrative is most certainly where video games have gone and will continue to go. Are we still going to keep having our Maddens and our FIFAs? Yeah, but even
another Call of Duty.
But Call of Duty now is trying to get for the past while.
Right.
It's been having these pretty big campaigns and trying to make their campaigns more. But even the FIFAs and the Maddens and stuff now have each year they come out with a new coaching mode or a new season mode, which in itself is kind of a sort of a narrative that this is how I need to get my stadium and I have to manage this part of it and I need to do all this and I need to get ready for the draft, do the trades. Yeah. To an extent, that's almost building the narrative in these things. You know, you go back in the old Marios, and it's just Mario jumping around doing his Mario kind of stuff. You hop over a few years, get to Mario RPG. That had an excellent story. You go on to Mario 64. Still kind of brief, but it had a little story.
Right.
Mario Sunshine, a whole beautiful narrative. Mario Galaxy, a whole big narrative. These games are just evolving. So I think it's just we live in an exciting time.
Absolutely. I mean, there are other.
Injustice was so good. It's video game narrative that they made a whole fucking graphic novel series out of it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Which is just tremendous. And so I think it's cool that we're seeing Assassin's Creed movies being made. Mm-hmm. I think it's cool that for the longest time, video game movies were known as shit. Like, the Mario Brothers movie, shit. Resident Evil, any of them after number 1, shit. Number 1 was kind of good. It was okay.
Yeah. Well, and another one is they're doing Tomb Raider based on the new Lara Croft. We have two new Tomb Raider games, and this new take on Lara Croft is much more realistic.
Yeah.
And they're going to be making a film based around
compared to those old Tomb Raider movies that were shit.
Yeah, absolutely.
And they're doing a new. Now, Ghost in the Shell was like an anime and a manga, but they made a game of it. Well, they're doing a new movie, and I think Scarlett Johansson.
Which a lot of people are angry about because she's not Japanese.
But
the character is very Japanese.
But we will see if that turns out to be good. But I mean, it's.
But that's off topic. If we're gonna get back to talking about great storytelling in games. There are a couple other examples that I think merit being talked about. For instance, with most movies and with most games, like you start at the beginning, you work your way through it, you end at the end.
Well, yeah, it's
You know what I mean?
climax
Yeah.
and resolution.
But for some things, some movies and some not TV shows, but some games, you actually start at the middle of the narrative. And those are the ones that I think can be done really well. For instance, I'm talking about Red Dead Redemption. That game doesn't start with him as a member of the gang and then with John Marston, running with his old gang, and then them leaving him for dead, and then him getting picked up by the Pinkerton agents. You don't learn that stuff right out of the gate. You're looking at the game through the eyes of John Marston. And if you're a person and you're in a new town and you're meeting new people, you don't go up and say, "Hey, just so you know, this is my entire backstory." No, you don't talk like that.
Right.
He just talks to people, and as you build connections with some of the other characters, like Bonnie, for instance, is one of the main other characters, that those little tidbits of information start to come to the player because John Marston starts to talk about his own personal life. You don't find out about the fact that he's actually being hired by the Pinkerton agents and that he has to go down and systematically hunt down all his former gang members. And then finally, once you kill off the last gang member, you'd think that's where the game ends. But there's still a lot of game left. You go back to his farm and you reunite with his wife and his son, and you actually play several short side missions where you're just being a dad and a farmer, which is completely different from the tone of the rest of the game, because it's like, oh, this is like an epilogue. But then the Pinkerton agents show up because secretly they were like, okay, we're not going to let the world know that we hired this gang, or this guy that used to run with this gang.
Yeah.
So we have to nip this in the bud and kill him and his family. So there's this great scene where he sends his family off, die in a blaze of glory, fighting them off as much as they can, and that's when you're like, okay, clearly this game is over now.
Right.
But nope, because they jump a couple years in the future, and then you're playing as his son, Jack Marston, hunting down the head of the Pinkerton who was the head of the Pinkerton agency, who ordered the hit.
Yeah.
And then you get to literally traverse the map, going from like the first area where you start off, which is kind of like the desert of like New Mexico, Arizona, up to the place they call Tall Trees, which seems more like Colorado, and then all the way down into Mexico where you finally track him down, you gun him down, and then finally the credits roll. So it's like this narrative that starts at a place in the middle and then ends like 3 places further than you would expect it to end.
Yeah.
And what fantastic storytelling.
Yeah, I've never played that game, and you saying that makes me want to check it out.
Well, it's Grand Theft Auto in the desert.
Yeah,
it's by Rockstar. But it's great narrative, great music in the game. Like the actual score brings you into the narrative even further.
Right.
It's actually the first game I've ever played that there's a sequence with music like just tuned to that one little sequence where there's actual words in the song. It's just fantastic. Like the time from you to ride from this one point to this other point is perfectly timed out, that as you ride along the road, music is playing.
Oh, no, you must have never seen the opening to Snake Eater, Metal Gear 3, because they have a cool little musical sequence.
But are you playing through that, or is it?
Oh no, it was like a James Bond opening.
Yeah, I thought it was just like a movie. Yeah. This is you actually in control. That's like, I suppose if you veer off into the desert, I don't know if the song just keeps playing, or because I just did
the one time.
Yeah. But in any case, yeah, like for instance, that's how you really handle narrative in games.
Right.
Now there isn't choice in that one like there is in The Witcher, but like it's a straightforward story, but it's a fantastic story, and it's told from such a believable aspect.
Right. Like this could have really happened in the Old West.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, because you're seeing it through the eyes of this character, it's not like, and this is how my mother was, and this is how my whole backstory is. You know what I mean? It's, you learn more as he makes connections with other people. Whereas
in like old JRPGs, you'd go up to like a random villager and just talk and be like, "Oh, I heard that the old magic elf lives on the Wizard's Hill and has all 5 of the golden rings that you're searching for. Also, I'm just a shopkeeper. Do you need anything?" And everybody knew everything.
There's obvious poor writing. And then there's obvious fantastic writing.
Yeah.
And I think Red Dead Redemption is one that has fantastic writing.
The last thing in terms of our just like talking about really good narrative components of video games nowadays that I wanted to mention was just now we've also had a lot of games that have really good plot twists that you take what you think is going to be, well, everybody knows what a plot twist is, but in terms of video games, it's always, in the past it was always pretty straightforward. Like, you know what, we need to go save Princess Zelda. There's no plot. The twist maybe that Ganon was like a pig, but no,
Right.
no real twist. Whereas for me, I was thinking specifically, like the example that came to my mind was two of them. One, back to Final Fantasy, obviously, when Aeris dies, no one saw that shit coming.
Oh yeah.
Nobody saw, because that no one had ever, at that point in time, no video game had ever done something like that.
Yeah.
Where you kill off a substantially significant major character.
And not like at the end of the
like,
game.
like in the first third of the game.
Yeah.
But the other one I was
Also,
thinking
they didn't have any Phoenix Downs on them.
No, nothing at all. No, but the other thing the other one I was thinking of, just to briefly mention, was the Knights of the Old Republic. When you find out you're Revan,
Oh yeah.
that was incredible. I literally was like, holy shit! Like, and you play it again, and all the dots make sense. But the first, and that was like a M. Night Shyamalan Madingo quality twist. And in a video game, you just didn't think you would have, like, I would have never thought that I would have that in video games. And now it's like, oh, sweet, another twist. Cool.
Yeah.
But at the time, it was like, holy shit. You know, you play this whole game thinking that you're trying to find this Darth Revan, or you're fighting his apprentice and all this shit. And then lo and behold, holy fuck, it was me the whole time.
Yeah, you are the Dark Lord of the Sith.
Yeah.
That's a great example of a game that not only gives you great narrative by choice and dialogue,
But it has
also
that
with
big
a great plot twist. At the
twist.
end. One that I want to talk about as far as plot twists are concerned is actually a game that deals with narrative with barely giving you any lines of plot or dialogue through the whole thing. It's one of those kind of like visual narratives, and that's Shadow of the Colossus.
Oh, yeah.
Shadow of the Colossus is a game where you don't have nearly any information.
You have nobody to go talk
Except
to.
you're just a dude who's trying to save his girlfriend. One of the oldest
Right.
tropes in storytelling.
That's a great example of simplicity being used phenomenally.
Yeah, well, and the thing is, like, that first time that you come across one of the colossi and you look up and it turns and it looks at you, it doesn't look menacing.
No.
I mean, it's terrifying, sure, but they never look like they're angry or that, like, and every time you encounter one, you have this feeling like, am I killing, like, a noble creature here?
Except for the last one.
Because the tower?
The final tower boss.
The
that
Citadel,
thing
what do
is
they call them?
fucking terrifying.
But even then, like, then the twist comes out that really these beings were here to keep the world safe.
Yeah.
And that you just undid all that shit.
Yeah.
And the reason why the church has banned these lands is because just to keep literally this from happening.
Yeah.
Because you unleashed a demon back onto the world and it inhabits you. Which you get a feeling that something weird is going on as the game progresses and you start looking more and more demonic.
You know, I have to go back and replay that one.
As you kill him, you know, his skin gets
yeah.
pale, he starts to grow like little bumps.
Oh, yeah. Well, and then the Shadow of the Colossus is supposed to come before Ico, right?
Right, because the baby is Ico.
Yeah.
And then the third entry, The Last Guardian, I don't know how it fits into the series.
Is this coming out?
Yeah.
Oh, cool.
It's been coming out, I just
course.
did the air quotes, for like a decade. But they finally have been like, yeah, next year it is. And it's basically like you're a boy and you have a giant dog dragon sort of thing.
I've seen
it.
The
Looks
trailer
kind of like
for it.
Falcor from The Neverending Story.
Do they have those? Are those available, Ico and Shadow of the Colossus, on the PlayStation Network?
I
For
believe.
PS4?
Maybe.
I hope so.
I'm not sure. I have to double check.
That would be enough reason for me to go out and buy a PS4.
I want to say yeah, they have them like remastered. At least Shadow of the Colossus.
That game was so good.
It's one of the best games ever made.
Yeah, it's like Zelda play style combined with just artwork that's out of this world.
I just think it's great to have a game where there's no like enemies to fight, no shops to go in, like none of this stuff that I love in other games.
Yeah.
But a game that totally strips it down to its core: man versus monster. Man hunts down monster, kills it, and for a completely selfish reason, unknowingly undoes this
unleashes hell.
And seems what probably has been centuries worth of diligence by this
Yeah.
religious body of keeping these colossi locked away. That's one of those that all the narrative is just in what you see. It's not
Right.
even what is told to you, but then has an awesome plot twist at the end.
Yeah. So I think that just to wrap up here, it just shows that we have this wonderful medium that, people talk about it as silliness or child stuff or whatever, but just like comic books or animation or whatever, like we're telling these great real human stories through video games. And so I think I just really appreciate it and am excited for what is to come.
Yeah.
I will have to check out that new Shadow of the Colossus.
The Last Guardian.
The Last Airbender.
Let's hope that Guillermo del Toro finally gets in on the project and makes the movie.
Oh God, that'd be sweet.
Well, he's openly said that one of his biggest influences in filmmaking has been the game Shadow of the Colossus.
Yeah.
And it's a passion project for him. He just doesn't have the time or the funding
or the balls.
But fuck you, Del Toro.
You don't have the balls to do it, bro.
But if he can make it,
that would be sweet.
Wouldn't that be great?
Yeah. All right. So I think it's about that time to finish up our night with our Clash of the Tights.
Clash of the Tights.
Oh God, that's so loud when you do that.
Clash.
By the way, I went back and every time I listen to the show, I usually listen to it while driving to work. And fuck, man, you were so loud when you do that. Maybe it's because I have it too loud, the volume of my car too loud. But it's like Right.
Well, I mean, the rest of it, the episode is not super loud.
Anyway,
and I'm just like,
yeah, chugga.
Boom.
All right. Anyway, so last week we pitted Mulan v Merida in a Disney princess battle to the death, and the internet has spoken. We both sided on the Mulan's team because of her tenacity, her ability with close quarters combat and with a bow, and pretty much everything else. And sure enough, other than I think maybe like one person, everybody agreed with us that Mulan defeated Merida. So Merida...
pretty definitively, too. Yeah. Twitter had an 80-20 split.
I imagine Mulan winning that battle Braveheart style. Like, Merida lying there and being like, freedom! And then Mulan just chopping her head off.
You think?
Yeah. After disemboweling her and drawing, quartering her, all that good stuff. Merida, freedom!
Oh, man. Mel Gibson.
All right, so who do we have in our Clash of the Tights this week?
All right, this week we have a battle of serial killers. I'm sorry. That's so stupid.
Wait, please, tell me more.
I'm sorry. This week, we have a matchup of two of the most fiercest competitors that we've ever had.
Serial killers? More like killer cereal?
I'm talking Lucky, the magical leprechaun from Lucky Charms, and Tony, the ferocious tiger.
He's great!
Frosted Flakes.
All right, so in corner one, let's get a rundown of our man, Lucky. He's magically delicious.
He is magically delicious. He is a little immortal leprechaun guy.
From Ireland.
From Ireland, yes, I think all leprechauns are from. He has been shown in the commercials to have magic powers based on whatever marshmallow it is.
He can ride shooting stars.
He can make those giant balloons.
Yeah, he can make stormy clouds.
I'm pretty sure
control the weather with storm clouds.
I'm pretty sure he can shoot lasers or something.
He can create love in people with the hearts.
Yeah, he has a lot of different magical abilities.
Yeah,
which is pretty sweet.
And he also has many charms that present him with a great deal of luck.
Yeah. Now here's the problem with Lucky though. One of his weaknesses, avarice.
Oh.
He is very greedy.
Yes.
That's me Lucky Charms. They're magically delicious.
And he's also pretty fast. We've seen him run
from a
lot of things.
He is quick.
He's a quick little guy.
I almost had it him versus the Trix Rabbit.
Yeah. But he'd kick.
He would destroy the
Now Trix Rabbit,
because the Trix Rabbit's always losing. Lucky never loses.
Now Trix Rabbit v Cocoa Puffs would be interesting.
Oh, that would have been. What was the name of that bird?
Cuckoo.
Was it Cuckoo? No, he said I'm Cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs.
I don't know.
I hate it.
He had an addiction.
Or maybe Toucan Sam. Follow your nose!
Well, his only power is all the factory senses.
And having three bastard nephews. You remember that?
Are those his nephews or his
They're
children?
like Huey, Dewey, and Louie, but a toucan set.
All right. Anyway, in corner two,
wearing the red trunks,
we have Tony the
steroid-induced giant tiger.
So Tony has enhanced physical strength. He is a master of any sport. He's earned his stripes.
He's very athletic.
Yeah, he's good at hockey, soccer.
He's huge, and he's bipedal. So you know those claws. He's a were-tiger.
He has the ability to hop from 2-dimensional to 3-dimensional, kind of at will.
Yeah. And I don't know if anyone remembers this, but there was a period of time when there was a Frosted Flakes Supercharged. Was the name of the cereal, and his I remember his stripes went all like into lightning bolts, and he like had electrical powers.
He was like Tawny the Tiger from DC.
That's right.
He was
Sam Tiger.
He was a Shazam Tiger.
So basically, Tony the Tiger, we know he is physically agile and strong, and he also has
super athletic,
some electrical
lightning
powers.
But he also has the uncanny ability to bring people together. Yeah. When he talks, suddenly soccer matches are won by 8-year-olds. Grandparents and children come together and get ready for work together and stuff. He is a mediator between worlds.
Now, if we're going to talk about a weakness for Tony the Tiger,
go for it.
It's that he exists. I think he actually exists. Not like he actually exists. Hang on, let me.
You think he's real?
Yeah, and that's a weakness. No, let me put a caveat here. In all of the Lucky Charms commercials, it's Lucky as a cartoon character doing what he has to do, getting away. Right? It's a little adventure in each commercial. Whereas in the Tony Tiger commercials, sometimes it's just Tony doing stuff while a dad is talking to his kid. And Tony the Tiger will be there in the background, like kicking a soccer ball around and just being like pointing at the kid.
Yeah.
And no one even acknowledges that he's there. So I don't know if it's either sometimes he loses the ability to be like, he becomes ethereal, you know what I mean, that people don't pay attention to him, or it's that Tony the Tiger never knows when to leave.
Oh, man.
So, like, maybe, like, the story for him is done, and the dad's like, all right, let's go inside it. And Tony's just like, soccer's great! And they're like, all right, Tony, it's been fun, guy, but, like...
We have to go. It's time for dinner.
Yeah, it's bath time.
I think that my weakness for Tony the Tiger is that he gets harassed by furries too much.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm not making this up. His Twitter, like the Twitter of Tony the Tiger, like the official Frosted Flakes Twitter, like furries kept tweeting at him, like, "Hey Tony, like take off that bandana." Like, "Hey Tony." And I was actually I looked up Tony the Tiger just here, like to look at some pictures and think, and sure enough, there's a bunch of fucking people drawing. Like, this is one of him. Watch out, there's Tony jerking off.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
God damn it.
We're gonna have to tweet that photo.
Don't tweet that. No. But I don't know why people do that. Like you don't see pictures of Lucky jerking off.
I'm actually Googling that right now because I'm sure there's going to be one.
That's true. But anyway, so I think I would if I had to pick my winner for this battle, I think I'm going to have to go with Lucky.
You think it's going to be Lucky?
I think Lucky's magic will overpower Tony's soccer shooting skills.
Well, here's the thing about Lucky, though. His powers are almost always demonstrated as a means for him to get away.
Right.
If this is a battle in which it's to the death, not one of them is going to get out of this arena unless he kills the other, I don't know if he's going to have the chops.
Okay, I'm thinking...
Now, that being said, though, the Irish are pretty spry.
All right, I'm thinking that Tony... This is how I see the battle going. Fight! Tony whips out his claws and starts running, getting ready to beat the shit out of Lucky. Oh, God.
Sorry.
You just showed me a male stripper outfit of a Lucky
the
leprechaun. Anyway, are you paying attention or not?
Yeah.
All right. Anyway, but then Lucky dodges his attack and starts running, saying, like, they're magically delicious, and running, and then just casts Meteor with his shooting star. And that's it. And game battle over.
He might know Mateo.
Yeah, he casts Meteor. He throws a horseshoe, and a stampede of horses come running.
Yeah,
from Lord of the Rings.
The extent of his power. That is
I just think that using his Lucky Charms, he can cast a bunch of spells, and he'll destroy Tony. And then Tony will lie there dying, and then Lucky will look him in the eye and say, "And now I'm fucking you," because Lucky turns out to be a furry. That's how I see the battle going.
Or he just like leads and
we just got full circle back to bestiality. See, narrative. That's us using storytelling.
Okay. Here's how I see it going down.
All right, so for me, win Lucky. Go ahead.
Okay, here's how I see it going down. I'm going to save my victor to the end. So Tony the Tiger's going to come in fierce at first. He's fast.
Is he supercharged?
He's super strong. He's supercharged.
So his stripes
Absolutely.
are lightning
Oh yeah,
bolts.
his stripes are lightning bolts.
He's the Flash. Right
He's
now.
like Pikachu mixed with a tiger.
Okay, Pikachu.
And he's like were-tiger. He's running on two legs. So he's coming in claws, but with like lightning. And Lucky's just trying to dodge as best he can.
Right.
And Tony's going to get in a couple hits that we're going to think, uh-oh, Lucky's dead. Like, that's a gaping wound. He's probably going to die. However, the heat from the lightning is going to cauterize those wounds, so we're not going to have a little leprechaun bleeding out. Now, at first, Lucky's going to just do everything he can to get away. He's going to be flying on a big-ass balloon. He's going to be making a rainbow and dashing over it, or trying to dazzle Tony with a rainbow.
Yeah.
Because he's not, I think, inherently a fighter. I think he's just trying to get away, and because,
and eat some
my
precious,
my lucky charms.
Yeah.
But eventually, Tony's going to push him to the point that he's going to have to be like, all right, I need to defend my lucky charms.
Right.
I need to, my house, my home.
They're
I
magically
need to defend
delicious.
my lucky charms. So that avarice is going to take over him, like he's Larfleeze, and he's going to be like, orange powering out. So he's going to start throwing all of his magic, just like you said. Fireballs, horseshoe attacks, maybe a lunar-based power beam with his little blue moons, or you know what? Maybe the clovers will just allow him to manipulate the chances of luck.
Or space and time.
So Tony will come charging at him, and all of a sudden he'll trip on a stick, fall down, and like get hurt or whatever.
Right.
Manipulating luck. In any case, I think eventually Tony is going to what seems to be to turn the tide of this battle. In this fight, it's going to get really ferocious. I mean, these are serial killers.
They are.
You know what I mean? But I think eventually what's going to end up happening is that Lucky is going to use the gold coins. Remember the little pot of gold?
Yeah.
He's going to just drop a pot of gold and, like, onto Tony's chest. He's going to fall down. It's going to be so heavy.
Just crush his sternum?
Yeah, crushing his ribs. Not completely kill him, though. He's just laying down.
Oh, God.
And he's got this pot of gold on him, so he can't even, like, lift it.
Amazing.
And then Lucky's going to walk up to him, look him right in the eye, and say, "Don't touch me, Lucky Charms, motherfucker." And he's just going to curb stomp him like Mick fucking Rory.
Mick Rory. Okay. So win Lucky.
I think Lucky's magic is going to let him win out.
All right. So we've unanimously picked Lucky, the leprechaun, to win over Tony, the fucked up little tiger. So
over Tony the tiger.
Yeah. Dairy, their food. But
hearts, stars, and horseshoes, the head of my enemies and blue moons.
But we as always will put that out on the Twitterverse and see if you all agree with us, disagree with us, or just don't really give a shit. But this talk has made me quite hungry, and not for tiger flesh.
I'd try it. Anyway.
But I think that is our show for the evening.
Yes. Make sure that you check us out on Twitter. At Strong and Geek, as well as us personally at The Ben Ramirez and at Ramrez for Prez.
Listen to us on SoundCloud, on iTunes, or watch us on YouTube and you'll see a picture, but hear lots of good sounds.
Yeah, and I'll make sure to put in a little animation or something.
Yeah.
It'll just be right at the beginning. It'll just be bubbled in.
And join us next week when we talk more about all of your favorite stuff. And, oh shit. Oh dear. I have one last thing to add.
Oh no.
Last week, I mentioned Culture Club, and you asked what Culture Club was, and I told you that they sang the Right Round song. And I said that if I was wrong, then no one had to listen to us anymore. Unfortunately, Culture Club sings the Come Chameleon.
Oh, God.
Not the Right Round, so that was my error. That was Mulligan. I'm calling Mulligan.
All right. Well, next time, instead of making the listeners the victims of your error, you have to make it yourself.
I will commit seppuku.
Okay, I was just going to say eat a bag of dicks.
Okay, well, that's pretty bad too. But yeah, so my apologies. We're no more references to 80s bands unless we are certain, unless we fact checked.
Come on, chameleon. Bye, guys. It's been fun. Come and go. We'll see you next time. Come and go. Come and go. Oh, it's been so great. Come on, chameleon. I'm just going to let this fade out. We come and go.
Thank you for joining us on our post-credit scene.
Post credits.
It's your boy Peter Parker back again. Aunt May just found out that I'm Spider-Man and that's what's in my boxer shorts isn't semen, it's webbing.
Friendly neighborhood masturbation joke.
Oh gosh, I'm out of here.
Marissa Tomei, show us your titties.